let's take a look at the causes that led to World War I. Imperialism. So, what is imperialism? Imperialism is a policy where a country extends its power and influence over another country. And how does it do this? Most commonly through use of military force, or sometimes also by gaining political and economic control of other territories and people. The notion is of aggressive nationalism. It is love for one's own country but hatred for other countries. Under the influence of this feeling of intense nationalism, the political rulers succeeded in fanning hatred. So, by taking pride in this way of ruling, England and France had built up a huge colonial empire in Asia and Africa. But hum kyun पीछे रहेंगे? And that's why other countries like Germany, Italy, Russia, and Japan also desired to increase their sphere of influence and create colonies in Asia and Africa. But why Asia and Africa, you may ask? And why were these colonies so important? Sabka ek hi funda: more roti, more kapda, and more of makan. They got raw material for their industries and markets for finished products. इसके अलावा acquiring colonies also led to a tighter collar, power and prestige. Thus, these clashes led to fierce competition and left the entire world in a blanket of fear, mutual hatred and international tension. Another reason for the World War I was race for armaments. किसके पास है गोली का power? New technology transformed the nature of warfare. This Russian Ilya Muromets was the world's largest aircraft on the eve of World War I. Germany was indisputably a major military and economic power by the end of the 19th century. One of its ships, the Imperator, built in 1912, was the largest in the world. However, Germany lacked two attributes for it to be a great superpower. One was lack of an overseas empire, and the other was the absence of an ocean-going navy. So, Germany set out to flex its muscles on the world stage and announced a plan to build a world-class fleet. Britain regarded this to be a hostile act. In return, it announced a massive warship building program of their own, setting a new standard for battleships with HMS Dreadnought in 1906. Simultaneously, France and Russia also increased their military spending. Sir Edward Grey, British Foreign Secretary, said, "If the German fleet becomes superior to ours, the German army can conquer this country." The invention in the 1870s of a hydraulic mechanism that returned the gun's barrel to its original position after recoil cleared the way for rapid-fire artillery. Most important of all, scientifically designed shells packed with nitrate-based high explosives ensured that artillery fire was more destructive. At sea, torpedoes and mines proved capable of sinking the largest warships. On land, troops were entrenched behind barbed wire. Invented originally to control cattle, barbed wire inflicted massive casualties on infantry attempting frontal assaults. Thus, all of this attributed to a fierce competition among the European countries and gave rise to the race for armaments. There was no effective and any official machinery to enforce common laws amongst the nations. The first and the second Hague conferences were futile attempts to make everyone come to an agreement for limitation of armaments. The first conference met in 1899 at the invitation of Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, and the second failed conference met at Hague in 1907 under the advice of Theodore Roosevelt of America. There were two objectives of these conferences: one, control over the armies, and control over the expenditure for war budgets. Both failed. Let's take a look at how Europe was divided and formed two hostile groups. Let's go back a little and know about the political system in Europe. This will tell us about why they made friends and with whom. Most European states were ruled by hereditary monarchs. In Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Russia, these monarchs retained their monarchy even though there existed the elected parliaments. Although Britain had its kings and queens, they simply followed and abided by the authority of the Houses of Parliament. In fact, Britain and France had restricted form of elections. Women could not vote, and in Britain, the poor were also excluded. And thus, as no formal institution existed for regulating international affairs, the states sought security in alliances. Germany allied itself with Austria-Hungary and Italy, forming their dosti known as Triple Alliance. Britain was traditionally the Akela Raja, but its fear of Germany led to agreements with France and later Russia. They were called the Triple Entente. Japan joined them later too. The last nail in the coffin was the Sarajevo crisis. On 28 June 1914, the heir to the Austrian-Hungarian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife, Sophie, were assassinated. Watch the video of the ghastly assassination by clicking the link given in the description of this video.